Hello and welcome back to Blackdog 134 Part 2. We are again joined by Danny Graydon.
Hello.
And Jim Moon.
Hello.
And what's your name again?
That would be Fuck You Metcalf.
Right,
I'm your long lost brother. Fuck you Metcalf.
Fuck you Metcalf. And we are. This is the part 2 of the Bond special, special needs Bond, and and we're going to be
starting early tonight.
We started early, and we're going to be talking about Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, so this is the part of the show where we were obviously going to do Rose Tinted Specs, but obviously we ran out of time last time, so we're just going to dedicate this whole part to just Goldfinger. If you want to hear more about us attempting to talk about James Bond, then go to 134 Part 1, which will be released at the same day. It all makes sense one day when you look on iTunes, or it won't.
And if you want some intelligent talk about James Bond, just find some other podcast that's talking about James Bond.
Yeah, if you want highly inappropriate conversation that ranges from Nelson Mandela to Jimmy Savile, listen to last part of the podcast, because that'll just fill the blanks.
Mac!
Oh, God. Okay, right. Okay, so, Goldfinger was directed by Guy Hamilton, produced by Harry Saltzman and Albert Broccoli. The screenplay was by Richard Mayburn and Paul Den, based on Goldfinger by Ian Fleming, starring Sean Connery, Gert Frobe. Is it Frobe or Frobe?
It's a Frober.
Frober, there you go. Honor Blackman, Harold Sakata, thank you, and Bernard Lee. Yeah, don't worry, reading was not my first skill. Music by John Barry, and it was released by United Artists in September 1964. It had a budget of $3 million, and at the box office alone, domestic, it took $124 million. That's back in the 60s, so that's quite a not
enough for a few sandwiches then.
Yeah, it definitely paid for for Sean Connery's hair weave for the next 30 years.
Catering bill.
What? Yeah, Odd Jobs catering bill. Yes, where I was going. The film was principal photography on Goldfinger, commenced in January 1964 in Miami. The crew was small, consisting only of Hamilton, Broccoli, Adam, and the cinematographer Ted Moore. Sean Connery never travelled to Florida to film Goldfinger because he was filming Marnie?
With Hitchcock.
Mm-hmm. That's right, yeah. Elsewhere in the US. Miami also served as a location to scenes involving Felix's pursuit of Oddjob. After 5 days in Florida, production moved to England, and the primary location was Pinewood Studios, home to, among others, to other sets, a recreation of Fontainebleau. Oh, God almighty, mums.
Fontainebleau?
Yeah, Fontainebleau. The South American city of the pre-title sequence, and both Goldfinger's estate and factory. 3 places near the studio were also used: Black Park for the car chase involving Bond's Aston Martin and Goldfinger's henchmen inside the factory complex, RAF Northolt for the American airports, and Stoke Park Club for the golf scenes. London's Southend Airport was used for the scene where Goldfinger flies to Switzerland. Ian Fleming visited the set in April 1964 and died a few months later in August 1964, shortly before the film's release. The second unit filmed in Kentucky, and these shots were edited into scenes filmed at Pinewood. Principal photography was then moved to Switzerland, and the car chases being filmed in a small curves in the roads near Rielp. Unless, of course, that's pronounced differently. Exteriors of the Pilatus aircraft factory in Stans, serving as Goldfinger's factory, and Tilly Masterson's attempt to snipe Goldfinger being shot at Furka Pass. Fucking pass. Filming wrapped in July Andermatt after 19 weeks of shooting, just 3 weeks prior to the film's release. Hamilton and a small team, which included Broccoli's stepson and future producer Michael G. Wilson as assistant director, went for last-minute shoots in Kentucky. Extra people were hired for post-production issues such as dubbing, so that the film could be finished on time. I will leave it there. The Fort Knox was... Oh, God, never mind. I'm not going to bother with the trivia because I'm sure it's all going to come up. The film would have been... Is it the fourth But
No,
it would have been
isn't it?
no, but it is the third, but it would have been the fourth. But there was all sorts of issues with Thunderball,
yes.
the legalities of Thunderball. So basically, that's why the schedule got switched around.
I think that went on for many years.
Well,
didn't
it's
it?
still-
Legalities of Thunderball. This is why they've had about 4 different versions of it.
Well, there was Never Say Never Again. There was going to be a version in 2000 called Warhead 2000,
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, it was going to be a new James Bond film, but
Yeah.
it never kind of materialised.
Never appeared.
Weren't there going to be 2 running at the same time, 2 productions? I think there were. 2 different companies were going to do 2 different James Bond films.
Well, that was the issue a few years back when Sony took over, because McClory died a few years ago, but just before he died, he was trying it on again to do yet another version, and I think that was like Warhead 2010 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, really, it's the only time that Bond ever had a real sort of direct competitor was Never Say Never, which went directly head to head with Octopussy. Like a really serious contender.
That was like putting up a fart against a bowl of shit, wasn't it? Really?
Well, I actually Never Say Never actually did quite well. I mean, Octopussy beat it.
Yeah.
But that was McClory's real ace in the hole, that he actually managed to secure Connery back. And as soon as that happened, it was sort of, just a huge amount of press, and it was all Battle of the Bonds that whole summer.
Cool. Okay. Well, I mean, I've got some bits and trivia and stuff like that from IMDb, but like I say, we'll dip in and out of those. I'm sure it'll all come up. But let's start with one of our guests. Let's start with Jim. Jim, what did you think of Goldfinger?
Well,
That's always a good start.
yes. I have to say, I mean, Goldfinger was one of the first Bonds I saw. And I've not actually seen it for many years until watching it again this summer. And I have to say, it is showing its age somewhat.
It's all right, Jim. You can say it's shit if that's what you think. It's okay.
Well, it's the thing is, it starts really well. It's disconcerting seeing the gun barrel sequence with Bond in a trilby, because that instantly sort of says, "I've come out of a time capsule."
It's the way he
You want
leaps
a
across
word
the
that's
screen as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it starts well because this is the first proper opening sequence, which has sod all to do with the rest of the film. It establishes that tradition, and that works well. Then you have cards and the Aston Martin, and it's all going swimmingly until Bond gets captured.
Yeah.
And then for a large chunk of the film, it just seems to stop.
Yeah.
And he's just hanging out with Goldfinger and Pussy Galore.
Yeah, that's definitely something I couldn't quite understand. It was just like he just seemed to say, "Dude, you can't kill me because I know shit, and please don't kill me." And then Goldfinger just goes, "All right then." And then they go to their palatial home in Kentucky and sort of swan about, and then Bond gets a bit rapey, and then it all kicks off.
Well, that's it. Then it pulls it back for the great ending. Classic count against time. Even though now, watching it, being more sophisticated viewers, you're going, you're really cheating with this time sequence. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, eh? But it does have that big lull, and it's it's not as globe-trotting as I remember. It is, I mean, it's one of those things they always say Goldfinger set the template. But it did for some things, but for other things it didn't. They still hadn't got all the elements there. Because it is pretty much just based around a couple of locations, and they're not actually that exotic, really. But bar the opening hotel. And watching it, I thought, bloody hell, Connery was really shafted, and all the other actors. You get to stay in Miami. No, you don't. You get blue screen.
You get to stay. Yeah, you get a bit of rear projection. We'll go off to Kentucky and film. You can go and sort of stay out in Buckinghamshire somewhere. Yeah, cool. I mean, just we'll go around for a bit more discussion in a minute. But like Danny, what did you think of Goldfinger?
I've always enjoyed it because, as Jim says, it's the template. It's where the Bond franchise finally gets into its stride. Now, I have to say that actually I prefer From Russia with Love because it's more of a thriller, more sort of it's the closest that Connery ever got to Fleming, and but I think that Goldfinger just gets a very high reputation because it is literally the template for everything to come. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's like the best Bond film. It just happens to have a lot of very iconic moments in it that everyone seems to get drawn to, because it's probably the first film, the really popular James Bond film that everyone flocked to. I mean, Dr. No and From Russia with Love were very popular, but this is the one that really kicked it into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going for it. I mean, Connery's still magnificent in it. It's got a lot of just wonderfully iconic moments. I mean, the stuff when he gets out of the wetsuit and he's wearing a totally pressed white dinner jacket. It's absurd, but it is just unbelievably cool.
Yeah.
And it's got the Aston, and so all the icons are being set up in it. But I actually, I think its reputation is mainly forged because of that. I mean, which is not to say it's not a bad film, not at all. But it's, I don't really think it's as absolutely masterfully brilliant as perhaps time has accorded it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's whenever you speak of James Bond, it's always that, you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die, and that's but that occurs like 25 minutes into the film, and you think, now what? It's the bit that everyone remembers.
Well, the thing is that it does jizz away all the iconic moments in the first half.
Jizz away the iconic moments. There you go. That's the subtitle.
and actually, you realise how dependent the Bond franchise was on it afterwards, because a lot of those tropes, like the very polite confrontations between Bond and the villain. I mean, that's carried over into like every film thereafter, and it's enjoyable for the fact that it basically kickstarted Bond into like being a real global franchise. And as Jim says, I totally agree with you. It's not as globe-trotting as people might assume. I mean, From Russia with Love is certainly more globe-trotting.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And Darren, you, Mr. What's-It, you thingy?
Mr. What's-It, right.
Yeah, Mr. What's-It, what do you...
Fuck you.
Yeah, well,
fuck you, Metcalf.
I've seen you in the showers, Mr. What's-It.
Sorry. Let's see, what did I think of Goldfinger?
What do you think of Goldfinger?
I thought it was all right. I'm not joking. It was kind of, you know what? I obviously this is like, normally, I do find I've got rose-tinted specs with some movies, but with this one, I think I would have put Elton John in the 70s to shame. Really? With my rose-tinted specs, the fucking size of them with this one.
Milk bottles.
Exactly, because I'm looking at the opening sequence. I'm thinking, I don't remember this. What? Yeah. A seagull on his head? What the fuck is this? What is it? Does it launch rockets or something? Has it got like a microwave scrambler on it?
Yeah.
No, it is just a stuffed seagull.
Yes.
On his head.
Yes. That seagull went on to sort of like a fantastic career as a cinematographer, though. Sort of.
It did, yeah. But I don't know. It just seemed to me a bit lackluster.
Yeah.
It was kind of like. Maybe it just seemed like it was filmed in a bunch of car parks, or industrial estates tied together. I don't know. It just didn't seem... And Goldfinger himself, Laura pointed this out as we were watching. She's going, so he's supposed to be this big sort of, villain. And he's sitting there cheating at a game of cards between him and one bloke by a swimming pool. And that a bit cheap, isn't he? Like just a cheap con man, isn't he? Sort of like the Gene Hackman of Lex Luthor's there. It's just a bit. He's just a bit crap, really, isn't he?
Yeah. I think the part of the problem is that I think to modern 21st century eyes is that actual going away and travel and like even Miami was really, really exotic. Because all that sort of like going abroad for holidays and things. So I mean, that was probably still quite sexy at the time, whereas it seems quite prosaic to us now. But one of the things about Goldfinger that I did notice last week was that even though it was kind of setting up the template, it was still in a process of refinement, because you see that the Q scene is played completely straight.
Yeah, there's no comedy really from Q himself. I mean, because even though Q is the straight man, he does have a tendency to make you laugh, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that they're obviously still figuring out certain elements, but they obviously hit upon, and sometimes I think it's more accident than design. It's a direction they went, and it kind of just stuck. And it was obviously popular, and they've just stayed with it. But I think later on you had elements of Q being a bit of a bumbler.
Yeah.
Especially and that obviously came to the fore in the Moore years. There's a lot to like about Goldfinger, but it's because it's iconic. But when you actually break it down, it's kind of like, it's a good film, but Bond is still finding himself.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I wouldn't say it's one of Sean Connery's best. I mean, there's a lot of people that will disagree with me when I say that, I'm sure, but it's definitely not his best time as Bond. I don't think. I think it's a case of it, like you said. It's the actual the way people look up to it. I think it's a false idol. Yeah. Basically, a lot of this stuff blows up in people's minds, like the Aston Martin. It's like me. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sure there was a lot more secret agent-y stuff going on in this, and like you say, Lee, it's like, sitting around, oh no, it was Jim, that's it, sorry, Jim, sitting around doing nothing, being captured, and that's another thing as well. How crap is James Bond in this? He's got like this Aston Martin car with these fucking machine guns on it. It's got like an ejector seat. It's got like a bulletproof backing on it. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about bulletproof, shall we? Obviously, somebody didn't know the meaning of the word bulletproof, because that glass could just about stop a piece of paper being flicked at it. It's like, this is bulletproof, is it? Why are there big fucking bullet holes in my fucking bulletproof windscreen then, Q? Hey? I'm on the phone to him now.
or more importantly, if all the glass is bulletproof, then why would you need a metal bulletproof shield for the bulletproof glass?
Because they ran out of money for the back bit. That's it. Obviously, that's what it was.
But yeah.
So the funny thing is that when you actually look at Goldfinger, as you say, Darren, that the fact is like a false idol, it's become such an icon that if for some reason, critically, people sort of say Thunderball was really lackluster, and it's like, but Thunderball really isn't lackluster.
No,
I'm sure it isn't. I can't remember much of Thunderball, but
it's a cracking Bond film, and I love You Only Live Twice because it's got that really exotic Japanese culture.
Exactly. There's bits like that in it. It's the whole sequence at the beginning where he kind of gets shot up, and you think he's dead, and he turns up in the coffin, and it's like, hi, yes, I've just been shot, but I'm fucking still alive, and I'm going to kick some fucking ass, you cunts.
I got better.
A little fact here, a little anecdote fact, is that, where they shot the golf sequence at Stoke Park?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, there's another link to Daniel Craig, because the major sequences of Layer Cake were shot there.
Well, there's a link to Daniel Craig in that anyway, in Goldfinger. With the girl laying on the bed covered in gold. I mean, you look at Quantum of Solace with the girl covered in oil in exactly the same position on the bed.
Yeah. And also there's a link to Sean Connery himself, because his love of golf obviously came in, and the fact he just fancied the holiday.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe he was on holiday. It's just, I'm not leaving this fucking golf course. You've got to come to me. I'm gonna film my bitch.
I'm going to play 12 holes. Fucking film me.
So I mean, if we actually sort of dissect the characters, so Goldfinger himself is probably in his late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I'd say.
Right, so he's in his early 60s, right? So basically, he would have made his money probably about 20, 25 years beforehand, which would have been 1940. And what was going on? What was going on around then?
What was going on in the 40s with gold?
Well, I think in the book, isn't Goldfinger actually English? But for the film, they thought making him Germanic would play better.
Yeah,
Germanic and earning gold. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And then how do we lure him in? How do we lure him in with some
Mr. Goldfinger, I think you forgot this.
Yeah.
There we go. I think this is yours.
Yeah, I think this is yours. We found it in the shower someday.
Now, listen, we've got to talk about a very important issue with Goldfinger, which is the role of Pussy Galore. Now, I'm not talking about obviously the character in the film, but Honor Blackman. And now we're all the four of us. We are around the same age. We're the same generation. So we need to really assess just briefly Honor Blackman's position as a premium gilf.
Well, I think it goes without saying. I mean, you know.
But no, for younger listeners, of course, Honor Blackman, later in her career, she starred in an ITV sitcom called The Upper Hand, and she was.
Many of us did.
Many of us did. And so I personally think, and I know it's a bit distasteful to say, but you know, the lady's a gilf. The lady is a gilf.
Yeah.
She was definitely yes.
She's definitely gilfic.
Yes, yeah. Well, do you know what though? I was talking to someone at work, and this is not a gag. I just want to underline this right from the off. Right. That basically the implication all the way through it is that actually Pussy Galore, including with her flying foxes or whatever the bloody hell they were called.
Flying circus.
Flying circus.
It is called the Flying Circus.
Yes, Pussy, where would you like us to fly today? And now a sketch about the aeronauts called the aeronauts.
Pussy Galore's Flying Circus.
Pussy Galore's flying flat. No.
Yeah.
Are you going to suggest, Lee, that basically Pussy Galore is bi?
I think that apparently, according to my learned colleague at work, the implication was that the door didn't just swing both ways; it just went outwards. And that the most offensive thing about old Bond getting rapey was actually that the implication was that he basically fucked her back to heterosexuality.
Oh wow!
Well, if I remember rightly, in the book, I think she is a lesbian.
Yeah,
I think the Flying Circus is
her harem.
Yeah.
Yes.
I certainly get
lesbian version of Jerry Anderson's Angels.
Ooh.
That would have
certainly
made for
got the
interesting
impression
Captain
that
Scarlet.
she's bi. She's definitely bi.
Yeah, but it's just like just when you thought, you know, Bond in this film couldn't sink any lower, the misogyny doesn't just extend to just normal, just straightforward, sort of female interaction. It's now, I'm going to find the nearest dyke and I'm going to fuck some sense into her.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, nice, how classy.
She's just having out a real man.
It's very interesting because the early rough cut of Goldfinger was 4.5 hours long. It was the film, and then basically a hyper explicit 2.5 hour spit roast of Honor Blackman with being taken by Goldfinger and Oddjob. That's absolutely true.
I almost dread to ask what that could be called.
Yeah. No, what would it be? It would be a sort of like a Teutonic Korean. Well,
it'd be a gold job, wouldn't it?
Gold job.
Gold fingering.
Gold fingering.
Oh, yeah. God, that's it. And that and we edit there. Oh dear. Anyway, just on a slight tangent before we carry on.
Yes.
I would just say that someone put forward the suggestion on the Facebook group that rather than edit this down, we put it behind a paywall for subscribers to actually just get the unexpurgated version. Exactly.
Now, I will say there is one part of this film that is just a cracker. I think the film itself is kind of like on the ascendant.
Yes.
But I think the music in this film is fucking diamond.
Yes.
Because Barry, he had limited involvement in Dr. No, and he did a lovely score from Russia. But this is where it got really big and expansive. And that like the Into Miami sequence that opens the film is only about 75 seconds long, but it's got such a swagger to it.
Yeah.
The really heavy use of the brass. It's just a fantastic score. It's one of Barry's best. I mean, in this period, he just keeps getting better and better, right up to that point in On Her Majesty's, which is just a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, just going back a bit because I was going to say I watched. This is the first time I watched Goldfinger in about. I don't know, about 15 years, I think. It's been a very long time since I've seen it, and it was quite interesting because firstly, it was like Felix Leiter suddenly becoming some extra from Dragnet, which was the first thing. Then I started getting a bit pedantic. So the whole thing when the clock stops on 007, and then you suddenly get that real continuity error with Sean Connery turning around and going, "Yes, 3 more seconds and he wouldn't have had to worry." It's like, don't you mean 7? but anyway, the thing with me, the thing with that film that really bugged the shit out of me was like the whole sequence with Goldfinger and the mob.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the most.
Why does he have the table?
Well, it's not just why does he have the table. Why does he actually explicitly spell out what any of them have to do with anyone else, then tease them with gold, then kill them? It's like none of them.
Because that's his way.
It just seemed like the most ridiculous. I mean, it almost seemed like that was kind of a key moment in Bond history, because it was like it's the thing that they kind of refer to in The Incredibles and things that they kind of homage in things like Austin Powers. It's like the villain has to stand there and monologue for the audience, and it just seemed like the most pointless thing. It's something like, we didn't know who these people were. And it was like, and it was like all these weird incidental little moments. So every time something happened in the room, like the lights went out, it'd be like, all you'd hear was like, "Hey, the lights gone out. I don't like this. My feet stink." And there'd be like another bit like, "The table's moving. That's a crazy ass table. Look at that table. Oh, that table's really strange." And then it'd be like, "Goldfinger, I don't trust him. I trust him. Oh yeah, he's looking really nice. I think he's very fat." And it's just like weird scene. It was just like 20 minutes of that, and then it's like, "So you brought me all the gas," and it's like, right, and you brought in all the weapons, and you brought in all the machine parts, and you brought in the nuclear weapon, and you did this and you did that. Thank you very much.
You brought the pizza.
Exactly. And then right at the end of that whole sequence, after he's explained it all to Bond, who's hiding in the conveniently placed hollowed out map, it's like, "And now, if you just excuse me, I will be back in a minute. You will get your money." And it's like, and then he kills them. And it's like, hold on, that's a bit like going back to the Shining. That's a bit like Scatman Crothers doing a 14-hour flight and a sort of another 24 hours of driving in a snowplow just to turn up and have Jack Torrance basically plant an axe in him, and it just like, da-da. And it was just. And it was that kind of weird tonal shifts all the way through, where you kind of like, here's a spy thriller, here's a spy thriller, here's a spy thriller, and here's just some weird nonsense just to pad out the next scene until we get an action moment.
But guys, weren't you really impressed with that? Just the bravura acting performance of Oddjob's really great speech where he goes, "Ah." It was just really. I was actually quite affected by that. I just thought it was.
Yeah. Apparently, he spent 6 weeks in a sort of like method acting school
to get that right.
To get that right, yeah. It was all apparently all in the intonation. You know, if you went ooh, you know, it just would have been wrong. Yeah. And then the whole thing with the hat as well, that just made me laugh. The fucking frisbee hat. I mean, it's iconic, and again, it's another one of those things where you sort of look at Goldfinger and you go, right, okay, so it's got, you know, the weird henchman, it's got the megalomaniac, it's got the 2 Bond girls who have to die, and then it's suddenly like, then the one that you least expect will suddenly come around to helping him, and.
Cured by his magic penis.
Yeah, cured by Sean's eight wedge. Yeah, don't worry, I've got another club in the bag, if you know what I mean.
She's my 8-wood.
Yes. You want to see my Slashinger? You want to see my Slashinger ball number 1? I'm standing on it. But yeah, and it's just like. So, as you say, it sets everything up, but you're like, oh my god, it just drags in places, and the whole thing. There seemed to be a whole plot line that just kind of just dropped off the world with the 2 sisters. Goldfinger has one killed, and then the sister, is it Tilly? That's it. You know, who turns up just long enough to get into trouble, set off an alarm, and then get a top hat in the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just like there seemed to be little or no motivation, and it just seemed to just like, we're just going to turn up turn up and die.
This is the ultimate point, isn't it? Is that basically, yes, GoldenEye is iconic, but it is absolutely, when you look at it with a clear set of eyes, it's rough around the edges. It's really rough around the edges.
Yeah.
And it gets refined considerably with Thunderball and You Only Live Twice. And by the time, it's just a shame that kind of Lazenby is a bit it's quite subpar in On Her Majesty's, because they kind of, if Sean had been in that, you would have had like almost the real gold standard version of the Bond franchise in its early form.
Yeah.
But Goldfinger, it makes a really valuable contribution. But I really always hesitate to say, like, yeah, absolutely, it's the best Bond film, because there are certainly Bond films that are better at it. No question.
Yeah, I mean, but it was kind of interesting, because on the Blackdog Facebook group, when we did the poll, for which one of the actors is the best Bond, Connery and Craig kind of were neck and neck at one point. But then when it came to like what's Bond, what is Connery's best film, it almost just seemed to be almost instantaneously Goldfinger by like quite a wide margin. And so when I went back to watching it this time, it was like I was expecting to see something other than like 3 iconic sequences which have been seen over and over and over again, and it just seemed like, as Jim said, it sort of jizzes those kind of iconic moments towards the first 20 minutes of the film, and then you're left with Bond in Kentucky wearing different suits every single scene, even though he's a prisoner.
You know what?
He's like he had an entire wardrobe come along with him in that cave that he was hiding in.
The whole thing about the template, to tell you the truth, thinking about it, I would have thought You Only Live Twice as the template for James Bond. Because you look at things like bloody Austin Powers, okay? What does that feature in it? It features a villain with a fucking volcanic base. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, look at Dr. Evil, right? I mean, he's got the elements of Blofeld in there, but it's got things like, the moon base, the volcanic base. And where did we see a volcanic base? You Only Live Twice.
And in Spy Love Me.
Is it Spy Love Me as well?
No,
that was the sea base. That was.
That's the undersea base.
Yes,
but
and Moonraker with the big spaceship, space-based base.
It's a giant Johnson. Come here, Johnson. Yeah.
Sorry,
Darren, you're absolutely right. I think that Goldfinger is the film that sets it on the path to of that franchise identity. But You Only Live Twice has probably got more validity in really refining it.
Yeah, definitely. That's the full flowering of it. Because like Thunderball, you get more of the globe trotting, more womanizing, and the iconic big fight at the end with loads of troops and loads of people dying.
Yeah.
And then You Only Live Twice just wraps everything that's come before in the last 4 films together into one quintessential package.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is that that's kind of as big as Connery gets in terms of the scope of the film. Is one of the things if you assess the 50-year history of the Bond movies, it's kind of what happens is that the films progressively get bigger and bigger and bigger. Then they kind of reach their zenith in terms of like gadgets and effects and things like that. And then the next film they take it right back in tone. And I know that On Her Majesty's had like all that stuff on the top of the mountain, which was just bloody spectacular. But it was actually a much more intimate story.
Yeah.
And the same goes for what happened after Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only and Die Another Day and then Casino Royale. But it's what the franchise always does. It just gets bigger and then pulls it right back.
Okay, insert penis joke. Yeah.
We have a request, by the way.
Oh, go on, yes.
We have a request from one of our listeners.
Okay, go
who's
on.
asked that he wants to hear us all say Little Nelly in the Sean Connery accent. That'll be Ollie of Six Claw Paw.
What the fuck?
I don't know. He just wants us to say
Is he sitting
Little Nelly.
Is he sitting in the basement somewhere, just playing with himself?
I don't know. Why don't we ask him in 2 weeks' time when we see him?
So we've all got to say little Nelly
in the Sean Connery
accent.
At the same time, or
no. I think we'll do a round table. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
You go first. Go on then.
Little Nelly.
Go on. Try it again.
Little Nelly.
Right. Okay. Go on, and Danny, go for it.
Little Nelly.
Ooh, cheeky,
Yeah, but sexy.
a cheeky little Nelly there. Jim, over to you.
Little Nelly.
Oh, it tells her the unexpected, little Nelly.
Okay, well, I suppose it's down to me to just ask you for a little Nelly. Right, fantastic.
There you go.
She's bright yellow and she's got a nice propeller, if you know what I mean.
Oh, hang on, we got to find one. Who's that knocking on my door? Oh, it's little Nelly.
Hey up, where's me trousers? Got me a washboard.
Hang on, love, just got to put my tracksuit on or off. Yeah, all right. Okay.
Nice again.
Now then.
I could tell little Nelly was at the door because the mice had started throwing themselves on the traps.
Thank you, Les Dawson. Oh, dear.
So yeah, I mean, basically, I think we're reaching a consensus, aren't we? That kind of that we're sort of seeing past the iconography of Goldfinger and just this vaunted reputation it seems to have had thrust upon it.
Yeah.
In the last sort of 45 years.
Do you think just sorry to interrupt, but do you think that Goldfinger really is probably only most fondly remembered because that was when Connery really had kind of hit his stride? Because Dr. No, I always remember Dr. No as being one of those kind of like, it didn't need to be Connery, it could have just been like the milkman in that. And
it was the milkman.
The milkman. And then in the case of Russia with Love, it just felt like another thriller, as good as it was, but it just felt generic. And so the fact that the two previous were not as stand out, shall we say?
Well, one of these you got to remember the context of the films of the time, because Dr. No, there was a lot of sort of kitchen sink dramas that typified British cinema at the time. So Dr. No was a very, very striking change, that sort of really sort of tapped into the growing pop culture of the time. So I think that you can give Dr. No a pass on that, because it was a breath of fresh air in terms of British cinema. I think From Russia it really capitalizes on the character, really sort of firms it up, gives it a bit of Fleming. Remember at this time, of course, that Fleming was alive, so there was they actually had the man behind it as a consultant.
Yeah, gives it some extra level of validity.
Yeah, and I think that Goldfinger was just kind of like the real jump towards creating a blockbuster franchise. I mean, even though that term wasn't around, they wanted something that they could, because remember, the thing is now we are used to Bond films coming out sort of on average every 3 years, but the Connery ones, they were pumped out every year. 62 to 67, that is Connery's core period.
Yeah, because just looking through just Wikipedia for a second. I mean, the thing here, it says here that basically that the awards and nominations for Goldfinger over all others was the American Film Institute honoured the film 4 times, ranking it as having one of the best movie quotes, having the best theme song, having one of the best villains, and also was listed as number 71 in the most thrilling films of all time. Also, Entertainment Weekly and IGN, on their own polls and with readers' polls, both named Goldfinger as the best Bond film ever. Really? While MSN named it the second best, behind its predecessor. IGN and EW also named Pussy Galore as the best Bond girl.
And there you go. All that stuff you're reading out, it's kind of like, because it's had so much critical kudos thrown at it, that I think over the decades there has just been this instant assumption that Goldfinger is kind of like the gold standard of the Bond series, exactly. which I think actually cuts the other films short shrift.
Yes.
Because it's almost like this is as good as it got, and it's been coasting for 40 years. And I don't believe that. I mean, I think that the Bond franchise has typified itself by actually being fairly malleable. I mean, it's been consistent in tone, and it's kept its identity very strong, but it has managed to fit in to various periods of cinema, that have been quite different. You know, I mean, like GoldenEye being the obvious example. They retooled it so it could compete in a blockbuster market.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's also what's really interesting here is, you know, that in various sources, I won't bother listing them all out, but the DB5 was listed as the best car in action films.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, okay, fair enough. And Total Film named Goldfinger as the best film of the series. The Times placed Goldfinger and Oddjob as the second and third on their list of best Bond villains, and that was listed back in 2008. So that was just before Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and kind of feel that what's happening there is it's just like those guys, you know, these things came first, but then you look at the subsequent Bonds and you see they always seem to try and return to that. You know, there's always the nod to the Aston Martin. There's always a nod to having a weird, quirky henchman.
Yeah.
You know, Jaws in Moonraker and in Spy Who Loved Me, for example, is the best for that sort of thing.
Yeah, very much so. And he appeared twice.
Yes,
Jaws,
exactly.
So, you know.
But, you know, you could easily see Oddjob coming back for a second time if they hadn't electrocuted him on bars that weren't connected. But that's just me being... Yeah, because let's be honest there. When you look at those bars, they go into the floor.
Yeah.
They are not connected in any way, shape or form. So Bond sticking an electric cable onto one bar does not electrify that entire fence.
Shut up, that's why.
Again, you know, like just as Dr. No was a real breath of fresh air from kitchen sink cinema, the thing to remember about Goldfinger as well is that there was nothing like it. I mean, remember that 2 years earlier you would have had Lawrence of Arabia, Cleopatra, I mean, really, really fucking big Hollywood movies. And that Goldfinger was literally, this was kind of like the arrival of real pop cinema. And so there was, you know, I think it does get a lot of kudos because it was something so strikingly big. You know, kind of almost like a proto blockbuster, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, referring back to the wiki for a second, being lazy because I did have a little tipple before coming home from work. Basically, the list here, it says Goldfinger has been described as perhaps the most highly consistently praised Bond picture of them all, but this was because this has been listed down to the fact that it made Bond a true phenomenon and made it like an early sort of like blockbuster, as you say, and the fact that it came out, it even went as far as referencing the Beatles in the script. You know, it was pop culture, and it was the first Bond to sort of really break out, and it was almost, you know, as much as I hate to start doing this kind of thing and sounding old, but it was the Star Wars of its day. It basically stood out. It went da-da, no one had seen anything like it, and as we've now discovered, you know, it basically sets the template that all Bond films have been trying to reference, nod, or replicate in some fashion ever since. Where is it? There's also lots of stuff. Even within Bond canon, Goldfinger is acknowledged. In the 22nd Bond film, Quantum of Solace includes a homage to gold body paint. Outside of Bond films, elements of Goldfinger, such as Oddjob's use of a hat as a weapon, Bond removing his dry suit to reveal a tuxedo underneath, the laser scene, have all been homaged or spoofed in works such as True Lies, The Simpsons, Austin Powers. So all of these films, you know, they all reference Goldfinger, and by doing that, you know, that kind of builds a mythos around it. Like I say, like the Star Wars thing, it does that whole sort of, it builds itself into pop culture in a way that, you know, everyone will see these things with rose tinted specs. So it doesn't matter how good Thunderball is. It doesn't matter how good Russia with Love is. Everyone's going to remember. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Just like I am your father. You know, whether or not the film's any good, it doesn't matter. It's ingrained. It's spoofed. It's repeated. It's parodied.
Yeah, it's the touchstone of the entire franchise, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that at the end of the day, I respect Goldfinger, I admire it, and I do enjoy it, but it's not, I wouldn't, there are Bond films that I enjoy a lot more.
It's definitely calling it the best Bond film is selling everything else short. Definitely.
Agreed. Especially when it's only 3 films in, it's kind of like
Yeah.
there are worse Bond films. Weaker Bond films, but there's a lot of gold in the subsequent 20.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah. Oh yes. Sorry. What a cunt. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to start doing sort of things about sort of do a review of Jaws and say yes, it's a a real fishy tale.
It's got real bites.
Yeah, it's mighty Finn. Sorry. Anyway, before we go on to feedback, let's just wrap it up, because we are getting on. Or maybe if I've edited this right down, we might have only just been on for air for 5 minutes.
I think it's going to turn out like that. I think you'll be lucky if you get 5 minutes out of this.
It's going to sound like a Vanilla Ice remix. But anyway, so let's just wrap it up from us. So last thoughts, Jim. What did overall last thoughts about GoldenEye? GoldenEye, Goldfinger.
You and good GoldenEye.
Yeah, I like seeing her on the top. It's those thighs.
You distracted me. Something rotten there. Anyhow, yes, Goldfinger.
Yes.
I like Goldfinger. I have a good time with Goldfinger. I respect Goldfinger, but I won't necessarily ring it in the morning.
Oh.
I mean, the thing is, I think part of the reason it has such the reputation it does, for our generation at least, is the Corgi toy, frankly.
Yeah.
It's the one that amazing toy car comes from.
Yeah.
And, when you sort of remember seeing it, you remember the car. And you start adding your own adventures you had with your own version of the car that aren't in the film.
Yeah.
And, if you ask most people who haven't seen Goldfinger for years, how does it end? People will be going, oh, yeah, then Goldfinger has him going to go for his ghoulies with that laser. And it's like, no, that's first reel.
Yes, exactly.
Fail.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. But again, it goes back to what I was saying, is that it's that pop culture reference. It's the toys, it's the merchandise. It became a phenomenon. That's why it's still around. But so I mean, yeah. So you respect it, but you wouldn't call it in the morning. So
Yes.
oh dear. Darren, what overall?
To sum it up, I was looking at my watch. In fact, no, actually, I was hitting the info button to see how long I had left halfway through the film.
Really?
Yeah, and
So
that's always a bad sign with me if I'm doing that.
That's a pretty bad sign. I mean, that's okay, fair enough. So you weren't enamoured with Goldfinger.
I wasn't totally enamoured with it. It wasn't the film I thought it was.
You wouldn't, to use Jim's analogy, you wouldn't take it home to mother.
No,
it'd just be
this would be a dirty back alley job. This one, that's it. Dirty back alley.
Taking this metaphor even further, I'm almost afraid to ask what Mr. Graydon thinks of Goldfinger. But just Danny, overall, final thoughts?
I respect the film, and I do enjoy it. I think it's a very strong Connery entry. It's a progression for the.
Talking about back alleys. Yeah.
It's a very strong Connery film. You fucks. And it's a definite progression of the series. It's where the series really started to take flight, as it were. But I do think that just the sheer amount of over praise and the way it's become embedded in pop culture, I think people haven't viewed it properly for a long time. It's got a lot of strengths, but it's not what I would call absolutely premium Bond. So I wouldn't say it's a dirty back alley job, and neither would I say that it's a quick go around the ring road by an Ipswich trucker. What I would say, though, is it's kind of making me laugh. Neither would I say that it's a Gloucester Road patio job, but
Don't just if you go into basement building in Austria, I'm gonna. going to hell again.
But I would say that it is it's certainly a pleasant tumble in an above-average hotel on a Thursday afternoon.
And the mini bar's free.
with a free mini bar. Yeah, I'd say it's definitely got all of that. Oh, and maybe as well, I think it's got some surprises. And the iconography is there, so I'd say that within that tryst, that Thursday afternoon tryst, there'd probably be some MDMA as well.
Oh God, I've got to follow that up. Right. Okay. Well, I have to say, I
It was good.
yeah, it was good. Good night, everybody. Oh no! I've got to follow in the spirit in which it's given. I've got to say, I've after not seeing it for like nearly 15, 20 years, whatever. I remember it long ago when it still had its hymen.
Oh,
and frankly now, if we're going to do this, we're going to go for it. But frankly, right now, it's ropey. It's seen better days, and frankly, I think it might be a man.
so what you're saying is this is a hand job on the quick way to Heston Services. Yes, is that right? As you're driving.
Yeah.
I think actually it might be a reenactment of the Crying Game, except in Birmingham on a turnpike.
Oh, dear.
I think we must be the only podcast out there that's actually rated a James Bond film by sexual encounter.
I think, which in some ways is kind of
Yes, it is.
appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like, I do think, it's like forcing yourself on a black man in a barn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to some feedback?
I think we have broken new ground in cinema ratings. Actually, this is like it will never be the same. Like fuck you, Mark Kermode. Beat this.
Yeah,
right?
beat this. I give this 2 in the pink and 1 in the stink. I mean, what do you want? This one I give the finger.
Yeah.
Yes, and this one, I
This rates as a reach around.
Yes, this one hasn't got the goddamn decency to give you a reach around. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to bring this to a halt for a second. Apparently, Beelzebub's at the door. He says the taxi's arrived.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So overall, a kind of lackluster response, I think, for Goldfinger. Overall, it's got its place, but it's not as good as everyone makes it out to be, or as pop culture makes it out to be. Mm-hmm. So let's move on, please, quickly, to some feedback.
Yeah.
And the first piece of feedback is from a good friend of yours, Mr. Graydon, and ours, Herc.
Oh, a good man,
Mr.
yeah.
Heraclides.
Heraclides, yes.
Heraclides. It doesn't matter. Herc. It's Herc. So, let's start off. He obviously knows that you're going to be on here because the feedback starts off with ahoy ahoy Lee and Darren, and probably Jim, and possibly Danny, depending on whether or not he posts bail. I'll jump right in and say it. Goldfinger is pretty fucking good. It's by no means perfect, but it is a solid Bond film. I've been rewatching them in the anticipation of Skyfall and Connery ones. This and From Russia with Love hold up extremely well. It definitely has its faults though, but it's mostly the same ones that early Bond films all have. Such as good ideas for fights marred by sloppy execution and piss poor editing. Mm-hmm. They keep hiring people who look right for the role and dub them distractingly. Hilariously bad rear projection for car chases. And Bond throws a gold bar at Oddjob that bounces off his chest. Though to be fair, it made me laugh instead of pissing me off, so it's not a big deal. Um, that aside, it gets the right balance for a Bond formula. It's got humour. Bond is mostly likeable, except for that major caveat where he gets all grabby hands, rapey mouth with pussy galore.
Rapey mouth with pussy galore. Fantastic.
A chase, a shootout, and the plot itself is rather tight. Ooh, misses. Plus, I dig the fact that he goes all Columbo route and has Bond spending a large amount of time just hanging out with Goldfinger and winding him up. Also, Leiter and the CIA surveilling Bond and being so close yet so far away is also a nice touch. Best of all, the last act turnaround of Goldfinger saying, "I'm not stealing it, I'm going to irradiate it," is great. You spend 2/3 of the film thinking, this is dumb, and I'm gonna roll with it, and then they subvert you. Just end up thinking, oh, this is moderately less dumb, and I'm still going to roll with it. See also, wow, those army guys are really passing out unconvincingly, becoming, oh, actually, they were all faking it. Bonus subversion points for killing off both women. It looked like they were setting up to be Bond girls. And on the subject of subverting expectations, this is such an archetypal Bond film that it's easy to get mixed up with all the parodies. We've seen countless variations of table-strapping crotch lasers and ridiculous escapes by deflecting beams somehow, and I've completely forgotten that he only escapes with the simple fact of bluffing and putting doubts in Goldfinger's mind. Pretty neat. Plus, it also gets a decent amount of respect for being relatively low-key as far as these films go. Only one real chase, one real shootout, a couple of fistfights, and the rest is actually plot movement. So would I enjoy watching this again? Yes, I would. Classic, I say. Peace out, Herc. P.S. No doubt there'll be countless other people covering various Bond subjects such as Bond girls. I just wanted to add Titania from Russia with Love. Rawr. As for Domino in the fourth James Bond film, she's lovely, but there's even some nip slip. Certainly puts some thunder in my balls. Seriously, how could I not say it? There you go.
Oh, that's really great of Hope. But there was something he actually curiously missed out, because on the Facebook group, he said that he's written no less than 17 /fiction stories about the old lady with the gun.
It is true. It's called Herc Circle Jerk.
So Herc, you're being a bit disingenuous there. You should have put that in, right?
At least giving us an example.
Yeah.
No, actually thinking about it, no.
Let's not go there.
Right, okay.
No. I mean, the one he read me was actually, it was very poetic, actually, surprising, actually, for Herc. But it was about that lady and a glass table. Anyway, no, it's okay. Right,
was Scatman Carruthers there?
Moving on.
Right, okay. So the next piece of feedback is from Dave Probert, and he writes, "Hi chaps, Goldfinger is my favourite Bond film. As a fan of the series, it's the film that I watch most often and I never get bored of it. It was the film that took Bond series in a new direction. While Dr. No was all about establishing the character and From Russia with Love was an excellent spy thriller, Goldfinger gave us the first bonkers millionaire with infinite resources and a batshit crazy plan, backed up by a henchman with impractical gimmick for killing people. Bond could go back to his template again and again with various degrees of success, and it's easy to forget that Goldfinger when it was released, it was a really fresh idea. The film is also responsible for a deep and abiding love for the Aston Martin DB5. It was the first and best Bond car. It looks beautiful and is chock full of gadgets, and who hasn't occasionally wished they could launch a passenger through the roof to be splattered liberally across the M25? While it's undeniably flawed, Bond forcing himself on pussy galore is uncomfortable viewing in the enlightened 21st century. The fun of the action scenes, the fantastic villain, the great dialogue and the wonderful set design all help make Goldfinger a classic of the franchise. Thanks, all the best, Dave."
I agree with that. Yeah, solid.
Cool. Okay.
Little bit of road rage there, actually.
Yeah. Do you think Dave wrote that after a very long trip around the M25, having to go through the Dartford Tunnel? You know, that's always a good excuse to try and look for an ejector seat. Anyway, cool. Thank you very much for that, Dave. And the next piece of feedback is from Martin Thompson. And Martin Thompson writes, "Hello, chaps, and possible special mystery guest. Sorry, I misread that. Among the Bond lovers, I would guess Ian Bolton, Ian Wilson, Dave Probert, and Jim. Well, good guesses, but all totally wrong except for Jim. Anyway, I can only recall seeing Goldfinger in its entirety once, but I was looking forward to watching it as a Bond film. But I was looking forward to watching as a Bond film is like lovely comfy pair of slippers. Okay. I can't say to be a big fan of the franchise, although Casino Royale gave me a new appreciation of 007. I was hoping this film would come up as a part of the Blackdog Bond Minute, as it's a quintessential Bond film in my eyes. Babes, gadgets, exotic locations, odd job, and a villain with an awesome name. It's probably come up as a trivia, but there really was a Goldfinger. Ernest Goldfinger was an architect that really pissed off Ian Fleming. The film is stuffed full of 60s cool, and I love the old style maps in the car. 60s sat-nav. The film lags a bit when Bond gets captured, but I still enjoyed it a lot, even if some things stick out, such as Goldfinger's elaborate presentation to his specially built room, which was fun but kind of impractical. And why put up a giant photo on the wall just to point out Fort Knox when he has a model? And why tell the gangsters his plan when he's going to kill them all anyway? Jill Masterson's death is still shocking, even when you know it's coming, and the Masterson sisters must be one of the unluckiest families in the Bondiverse. Anyway, I enjoyed the film, and on to the next. Cheers, Martin.
Now, Martin makes a very good point there, because is the death of Jilly Masterson the de facto the most expensive bukkake in history?
Well, no, you know, there was a deal on gold paint, to be honest, you know, and let's be honest, you know, in Sontum of Qualis, they did it with oil, and let's be honest, that's more expensive than gold.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, well, I mean, gold paint is just, you know, you can go down a local chav supermarket and get some nail polish. You'd be fine.
And you can't actually die from being painted gold.
Well,
it's not worked for David Dickinson, has it?
Very nice.
Yep.
Okie dokie.
But then again, that's maybe the reason we don't know the names of the Blue Man Group, because they keep dying and being replaced like Lassie.
Right,
Jim, that's very controversial. I think you've given the boys like the Black Dog conspiracy theory segment.
Yes, yeah, well, yeah, conspiracies with Jim Moon, only on the Black Dog podcast.
Here we are at a landfill just outside Southport, where the last 600 members of the Blue Man Group would die. Yeah.
Was Savile involved?
Just make it as elaborate as possible, but also just always bring it back to Uncle Jimmy.
Yeah. The Loch Ness monster, was it really a sea beast, or was it a murderer of prostitutes?
Exactly. Listen to this recording of the Loch Ness monster in 1957. Right? Any more? Do we need any more proof, guys? No.
Yeah, bullshit or not. I'm Henry Silver. Is it true I'm just doing this for the money? Anyway, moving on to the next piece of feedback. Next piece of feedback is from John Campion, and he writes, sorry chaps guests, I ran out of time for editing my rambling MP3 feedback, and I've written one with a half thumb swipe on the iPad, so hopefully instead. Because last time he did a written feedback, it was a 2-thumb swipe on the iPad. So he's now saying it's like a half thumb swipe. Well, yeah, good measure.
2-thumb swipe is what Pussy Galore got in the barn.
and a flying circus after the mission. And scene. Anyway, John continues. So, Goldfinger. I'm only saying it that way because that's how it's spelt. Great theme tune. I thought I'd like Diamonds Are Forever more, and I realised that David McCalmont's gloriously over-the-top cover I had in mind. Could it be improved? Sure. Hey, put Big Spender in there, and you'd have to change the title of the film. But no. I can also remember being vaguely terrified of the idea that someone would paint you to death after seeing the film. Lee should watch out for that if decorating is on his to-do list. Do not use metallic paint, Lee. Yeah. Yes. DIY disasters. Yeah. I'll explain it to you off air, Danny. It's a long story, but
now, I'm gonna have to be a bit pedantic here, right? Because that gentleman, he just said David McAlmont's cover, right? He didn't cover Goldfinger. He covered Diamonds Are Forever.
That's right. No, that's what he said. He said, I thought I liked Diamonds Are Forever more. Then I realised it was David McAlmont's gloriously over the top cover I had.
Oh, right. Sorry, my fault. I wasn't listening.
No. Oh, cheers. You cunt. What are you on here for? You're wasting my bandwidth.
What do we pay you for?
What do we pay you for? No, actually, it's actually my terrible read. It's could become something of a tradition on this cast.
Yes.
Your fucking fault then.
Oh, cheers. Oh, it's always my fucking fault. Anyway, so John continues. The film is definitely a period piece, and Herc will probably comment trenchantly on the sexual politics. But for me, the biggest what the fuck moment was Goldfinger's plot itself. Irradiate the world's gold store, bring the economy to its knees, and hand China the economic dominance. Sod that, Auric lad. Just get a seat on the board at Lehman Brothers. You'd accomplish your aims and probably get to keep your share option and pension too. Stuff I like about Goldfinger. Gert Frobe's a great villain and having an undefinable mid-Europeanness. What the hell was that? The cat attacked your...
Yeah, I just stood up and it leapt on my chair, so I tipped the chair and then he leapt on me... what's his name?
Oh,
tablet.
Your tablet, right?
Oh,
okay.
Pushy.
Yeah, Pushy's attacking his tablet.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is going to be an editing nightmare. This fucking cast,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, stuff I like about Goldfinger. Gert Frobe is a great villain, having an undefinable mid-Europeanness and the most memorable villain line of the series. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Oddjob is a splendid henchman, and in real life a lovely man, apparently. Just goes to show. And I like the Q division in general, and the mayhem going on in the background as Desmond Llewellyn explains the gadgets to Bond has always been a highlight of the Bond films to me. From our vantage point, though, this era of Bond teeters on the verge of being Adam West Batman. Hey, we had that yesterday, didn't we?
All right, okay.
Well, it's going into it's going into Roger Moore, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's leading up to it.
Yeah,
so.
and he goes, with Craig era Bond becoming more Nolan era Batman, I guess. I like Roger Moore's Bond because it felt like he got that, and he enjoyed the character anyway.
He just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah. But my pet theory is that Moore is disliked by some because he was the Bond during the heyday of the safari suit, and no one looks suave in a safari suit.
Except Roger.
Yeah. And Russ Abbott during the
Abbott.
80s. So there you go. Lord knows how Lee has the time to do DIY, get hospital treatment, and do a podcast. Doing DIY alone has cut into my feedback writing time dreadfully. So I'll see you all soon. Take care. Cheers, John. There you go.
Hurrah!
Hurrah! Thank you, John. Thank you. Yeah, I think the Q division in this was really weird. I have to say, I actually thought, because it's like as we said before, it's like one of those things of like, it just all the craziness that was going on in the background was played dead straight, and Desmond Llewellyn just kind of plays it dead straight as well. It wasn't until later on that you get the really weird stuff with like sort of exploding.
It's a ghetto blaster.
Yes.
Yes.
Now listen here, Bond. This is a thing called a ghetto blaster. Press this button here, and it'll inflate my testicles to the size of a beach ball. Anyway, next piece of feedback is from Matt Jones, and he writes, hello Lee, Darren, Jim and Danny. I think that's everyone. I'm so glad you're doing Bond special at last. They've been my favourite film series ever since my mum and dad took me to the cinema to see Moore's final outing, A View to a Kill, at the tender age of 10. Okay, hands up all those people who feel very old right now.
Well, not really, because that means he's only a year younger than me.
Oh, fuck off. Anyway. Yes, okay. Moving on to the non-fetuses in the audience. Matt continues. I absolutely loved it. It had action, big stunts, humour, crazy villains, and a proper British hero who it didn't seem to matter to me that it was in the mid-50s at the time. I was hooked from then on in and made sure that I caught every Bond film that was shown on ITV at Christmas and bank holidays. I discovered that another bloke played Bond before Moore, and his films were equally fantastic too. Goldfinger is the first Connery Bond film I can remember watching. It's very much a prototype for the Bond formula, with all the ingredients that helped the series survive for an amazing 50 years. Connery really hits his stride when he's pitted against Gert Frobe's villainous and aptly named Auric Goldfinger, uncovering his plot to irradiate the entire US gold supply to increase the value of his own wealth. Bond is actually fairly useless for most of this film though, mainly succeeding in getting himself captured and women killed, but he does manage to seduce a suspected lesbian, well, she was in the books, Pussy Galore, leading to Goldfinger's eventual downfall. There is much to enjoy in Goldfinger, a great henchman in Odd Job, great interplay between Bond and the villain, the classic laser scene in the archetypal Bond vehicle, the gadget-laden Aston Martin DB5. After the lower key but equally great From Russia with Love, Bond takes a giant step forward towards the big-scale action films that we know today. The series has frequently ended up taking this a step too far, resulting in over-the-top silliness, the three biggest offenders being Diamonds Are Forever, Moonraker and Die Another Day. The producers, however, seem to realise this and always tone it down in the next instalment whenever that happens, which is proved to give the franchise its longevity the others strive for. So Goldfinger sets the template for every film that followed, for better or worse. For me, it remains a classic and definitely one of Connery's best. Eventually, I owned all of the Bond films on VHS and all of the Fleming books, as well as the books about the film series. He's probably buying yours right now, Danny.
Yeah.
Do it.
Do it. My young fanatical appreciation of all things Bond reached its peak in 1987 when a new Bond arrived in the form of Timothy Dalton in the brilliant Living Daylights. This is one of my all-time favourites, with a story more realistic than those of the Moore era without sacrificing the action, and Dalton is still my favourite Bond actor.
Good man.
I enjoy watching all 6 official Bonds, with Craig probably the close second, but Dalton is the ideal Bond for me, closest to the character that Fleming created. Both of his films are Bond are solid, which is more than you can say about most of the others. The only Bond actor I've actually met is George Lazenby at a convention several years ago. He seemed like a nice chap, and it's a shame that he's often overlooked as Bond, as over the years his only outing, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, has become a firm favourite. It has an amazing score, perhaps John Barry's greatest ever, exciting chase sequences and picturesque snowy locations, and an epic feel to the tragic story, sticking closely to Fleming's novel. When I watched the entire excellent Blu-ray collection last month, it certainly stood out as one of the best. Lazenby's Bond shows an emotional vulnerability rarely seen in those films, and he could have gone on to become one of the most memorable as Connery, almost as memorable as Connery, if he hadn't foolishly left after just one movie. Other favourite Bond films of mine include Live and Let Die, which has a sinister voodoo vibe, and probably the best theme song, The Spy Who Loved Me, which contains the fantastic pre-title sequence, on top of a top henchman Jaws, and GoldenEye, which puts Brosnan's Bond against Sean Bean as the agent-turned-rogue Trevelyan, one of the series' best villains. I also love the Craig films, even Quantum of Solace, though I will concede that it suffered from an underwritten script. On the more recent note, Skyfall is awesome, and I almost certainly end up giving it in my top 5, although I'll have to wait and see it again in Waterloo IMAX screen on Friday to have a better idea. I knew this week's feedback would be a long one, but I've tried to keep it as short as I can. I hope I haven't rambled on too much, and I love the franchise so much that it could have gone on for hours. Hopefully you'll cover another Bond film again soon in the future so I can wax lyrical some more. Thanks guys, Matt.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Matt. It's that's a really heartfelt piece of feedback. In fact, it's probably the one that covers the Bond the most, so it's like we should have probably had that in the other part of the cast, to be honest. Oh dear, let's go back and re-record the whole fucking lot again. Actually, let's not. Anyone got anything to add to that? I mean, he seems to have a very large appreciation of Dalton, which clearly got talked up in the last episode.
I think so.
Was it very much in accord with our own findings, I believe.
Yes, exactly. Except he does, and he also has a lot of love for Lazenby. I mean, we never really covered Lazenby too much in the last part. No. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
I always think that Lazenby was fine, right? He just had the circumstantial misfortune of following Sean. And also he was quite an arrogant guy, and he kind of scuppered his own tenure. So I think, and he's admitted that for decades now that he screwed it up. But he's a fine Bond. He's okay. He's just not, he's not Sean, and he doesn't make enough of a difference. His interpretation, he can be seen as comparatively bland, and middle of the road. But the best thing is that he is supported by a simply fantastic Bond film.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation, isn't it? I mean, it is a really solid Bond film, but it's just you do find yourself just going, God, he's dull. I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if Terry Wogan had taken his place at that point. It's just that kind of sort of like middle of the road, kind of. He almost like seems to be doing a Bond impersonation rather than actually acting. That's my opinion anyway.
But the thing is, he only has one film to go by. I think he had tremendous potential because it's kind of. Every time I watch On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Lazenby actually impresses me more because it's a very subtle performance where Sean Connery was a milkman.
Yes,
a suave milkman, admittedly, but a milkman nonetheless.
Commander Bond, can I have 2 gold top, please?
It's one of those
gold
things.
top.
He didn't have a chance to grow into the role, if you know what I mean. Because I think it takes a couple of films to bed down any Bond, and this is why Dalton also gets overlooked because only did 2. You have to do 3 really to be taken seriously as not a part-timer.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And that's why I think with Craig, I've always thought that, to really cement yourself in and have a really proper legacy, you need 5. I mean, Brosnan's got like a good set, but there's always the feeling that Brosnan, he wanted to do one more, and I think he would have left after that. I think he would have had to, and he always felt slightly betrayed that he was sort of kicked out after Die Another Day. But I think because of Sean's work, because he had those 5 crackers. That everyone thinks that to be a proper big Bond, you need at least 5.
I mean, just going back to Brosnan for 1 second, there was an unofficial Brosnan Bond afterwards, at least in my mind, anyway. The Matador. Has anyone seen it?
No.
I have, and Thomas Crown as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, Thomas Crown is more serious, but The Matador has Brosnan as a washed-up assassin.
Yeah,
sort of slobbing around a motel, and if you watch that, it's like straight after Die Another Day. It's like, yeah, you got fired, didn't you? And he's just like sitting there in his pants, floating in the hotel pool, with his scraggy old beard. I see that as like an unofficial Bond. It's well worth a look anyway. In
fact, there's a documentary that's been released in America called Everything or Nothing. I think it was on the Epix channel, EPIX.
Yeah.
And there's some very candid interviews with Lazenby and Brosnan, where they literally talk. I mean, Brosnan especially, it's almost heartbreaking the way he talks about just how devastated he was when he got knocked out. And it's interesting because like you can see that it must be very difficult to be in the eye of the storm of such a level of fame you get being Bond. Know that you've only got tops, 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. I mean, Roger outstayed his welcome. I mean, for 12 years. But the thing is that, it must be difficult to give it up because basically that's your career defined ever after, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I heard Roger Moore had to give it up because basically in View to a Kill, it took him like 2 months just to film that scene where he's running up the Eiffel Tower.
Do you know what? I won't hear a thing against Roger. Even he knows he stayed around because the thing is that Octopussy was meant to be his last film, and they were actively screen testing other actors, and I think in the last 3 films that Roger did, the tactic that Cubby Broccoli had was to screen other actors to get force Roger to agree to another fee. That was the thing. So he took the money. But I think all Roger's films are fun.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Cool. Well, I mean, yeah, I have to say, For Your Eyes Only really annoys me, but that's partly because of the jumpers and
the jumpers.
Yeah, it just seems to be a film about jumpers and Topol, but that's just me.
Actually, Topol's chewing on nuts, isn't he? All the way, he chews a lot of nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all sorts of subtext, and then there's the underage gymnast, and
yes.
Yeah, and then when she sort of like she's falling all over Roger Moore, it's like that's like watching a baby rat roll in flour. It's just
oh god,
it's just weird. It's just weird. It's kind of endearing in a strange old way, but on another side of it, you just know that there's lots of greasy skin getting rolled up in stuff that really shouldn't be getting. No, anyway. Moving on. The next piece of feedback is from Paul Apple, or Appel, depending on how you pronounce it.
Okay.
You're going to like this. Bond feedback. Hey there, Black Doggers. Long-time listener, first-time feedbacker. I am a member of the clergy, which I think brings your total up to 2. We almost have a tribunal with Reverend Org here, but we need to have one more to start your own trial for your sins against the internet. Just kidding. I love the show. No, the tone doesn't bother me. It isn't anything I haven't heard in the confessional like a zillion times. Anyway, keep
Jesus Christ, honestly. Well, that's quite a qualifying statement, actually, sir. Yeah, that's Fucking hell, if it's worse than this, I
think you need to get a new parish. But anyway.
Yeah.
So he continues. Anyway, keep up the very fine analysis of film culture and humorous stories.
That's such a generous statement, isn't it? It's kind of like, keep up the good analysis. You swearing fucks.
You swearing inappropriate fucks, and may God have mercy upon your soul.
Yeah. It's very, very kind.
Yeah. So he continues. I look at the Bond movies as a series of glimpses into the culture and attitudes of the day. Is there another series that we can do that acts as a commentary on the state of the world in the last 6 decades? Each Bond takes on an important issue of the day, such as the Cold War, the threat of nuclear war, the role of technology in our lives, the rise of terrorism, and a need for a hero to punch out the bad guys. All of these tales are told in the style of the decade they're filmed in. Bond has been debonair, garish, aloof, even a thug, reflecting ourselves and our cultural attitudes, oftentimes more accurately than we would care to admit. Not all Bond films have stood up as well as others, as some of the others, but I think all can be enjoyed if viewed as a snapshot of their time or a commentary on what was threatening the world at that moment in history. Just as Sean Connery fought the Cold War for us in the 60s, so one day Daniel Radcliffe will be fighting internet terrorists in the 2020s.
Christ, yeah.
You know what? It's got enough ring of truth to it you don't want to admit.
Yeah.
Yes, DB7 Expelliarmus. But anyway. Oh, and Goldfinger, I loved it. Great set pieces. The tete-a-tete between Bond and the villain playing golf was cool. Also, there's a sense that Bond is often in real danger. You didn't know how he was going to get out of it. Thanks again, Lee and Darren. Keep up the good work. Bye, Reverend Paul.
Reverend Paul, right, makes a really good point there. He does. Very good analysis, because I've always thought that the Bond films are a very peculiarly British power fantasy. Right, all of them are, because Bond is a loner, right? He is a maverick. He goes and takes care of business. He is allied with the Americans, but basically just never uses them. He just sort of does it himself. He doesn't need their technological power and wealth. And it's basically this power fantasy of Britain still having a relevance despite having no empire.
Yes.
And I think the Bond franchise plays that perfectly.
Yeah.
And it has done for 50 years, but even though it's like essentially a franchise made from American money. It's always very much impressed me that Eon have kept it distinctly British.
Yeah, because there's that one. What was it? It's You Only Live Twice.
Yes.
Where the Americans and the Russians are basically arguing across a sort of like UN style table, and then right in the middle is the very dour sort of English. The English Home Secretary going, yes, well, don't worry about it. You two just stay there, and we've got a man on the inside. He'll take care of everything, and we'll sort it all out and come back to you. And
yes.
It's like, yeah, right, really? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't think it's worked like that for forever.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and as we saw this summer in the Olympics, it's that really sort of potent sense of Britishness that people really, I'm sure that whole thing that happened in the summer with the Olympics, I mean, that's a great, what an amazing trailer for Skyfall that was. Jesus.
Yeah.
You can't buy publicity like that. I mean, honestly.
I mean, how many regents can you throw out of a helicopter? But anyway, yes.
You've just made that into like you've turned it into like a patriotic thing, into sort of like a covert regicide.
yeah. Actually, it was all a big thing about just basically it's a Republican. It's a Republican agenda being played out in front of us. Right. The last piece of written feedback. Sorry, I was going to throw it to Darren, but I'm on the home stretch now. I've done them all. Was from Gareth Lloyd, and Gareth Lloyd writes, "Hi guys. So Goldfinger. It's an iconic movie, but as far as Bond goes, it's not top for me. However, it is an important film as far as the franchise is concerned, as it cements a lot of the formula for the movies. Blasting song, the gadgets, the Aston Martin, Shirley Eden covered with gold, all memorable stuff. When I used to watch it as a kid, it blew me away, and while I still love it, I have to admit that Goldfinger does have a few lulls in its pacing, and to be honest, it's probably the Bond film with the least amount of action. However, the pre-title sequence is great. The last time Sean Connery actually looks like he wants to play the part. The villains are great, especially Odd Job, and the score is fantastic. And as far as Connery goes, my favourite has to be You Only Live Twice, which is still a mad mix-up of sci-fi, exotic spy shenanigans. So, as to the Bonds in general, I love them all, though I find GoldenEye dull and I don't understand why people love it. Moving on.
Yeah.
My favourite is on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a great movie whose only weakness is Lazenby's performance, and even then he's tremendous in the physical stuff. For me, it was the best of the Bond films and has the best Bond score, the best Bond girl and best car, and it has the best directed Bond film with the possible exception of Skyfall. As for the villains, well, Robert Shaw is hard to beat, and best Bond, well, it's tough. Everyone and their dog is going to be going for Daniel Craig, and he is really good, but I have to go with Timothy Dalton. Regardless of his films, he really tried to make Bond into the Fleming roots, and it's a shame he didn't do more movies. So, 50 years of Bond, and as a pack of films, they've entertained me since I was a kid, and few things thrill me more than that theme and the gun barrel rolling across the screen, and they all stand up to re-watching, and long may they continue. Cheers, Gareth."
Hurrah!
Huzzah! Yes, thank you very much for that, Gareth. Sorry for my complete abortion of a read out there, trying to once again proving that I shouldn't be let near words.
I think we've had a very it's been an epic discussion, hasn't it? But I think we've reached a sort of general consensus. Bond is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, it's a cornerstone of modern pop culture.
Yes. Well, yeah, we've got one last piece of feedback, actually. It's not written, it's MP3. It's from Simon Meddings, who does the Waffle On podcast.
Aha.
And he wanted to send in some feedback, and let's hear what he has to say.
Hello there, Blackdog podcast boys. This is Meds from Waffle On podcast, and this is just my feedback for your podcast on James Bond. So I'm a huge Bond fan. My first James Bond film at the cinema was Octopussy, admittedly not one of the greatest of Bond films, but I do have a childhood kind of happy memory of it through collecting, I think it was cards from shredded wheat packets. You don't get that anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But my favourite Bond, it was Connery, but it's really starting to go into Daniel Craig, really, because I think Skyfall easily is becoming one of the best Bond films. Timothy Dalton is seriously underrated. It's such a shame he wasn't given a chance to shine. Not his fault, of course. Unfortunately, his James Bond tenure came at the end of the 80s when basically everything was HIV orientated. Even Tom Hanks in Philadelphia, although that came slightly later. Had to jump in there for getting a film made on a disease. Well done, Tom Hanks and Hollywood. But Dalton did suffer for that, and he had the right kind of hardness to it. Best song in the Bond, I always think Nobody Does It Better is one of the best, or the theme from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, there's a few scenes that I think are great for Bond, and all, The Spy Who Loved Me is one of the best openers, having Roger Moore, or at least Roger Moore's stunt double, skiing off the cliff, the pause, the silence as he's falling, and then, of course, the parachute opening to the Union flag, and the opening chords of the Bond theme is just brilliant. Connery's rooftop fight on You Only Live Twice is the scene that kind of shows that Connery is hard. And I think Craig is doing just as good now with the fact that when he punches someone, you feel the crack of the jaw. Connery always had that. I don't think Roger Moore did, although I absolutely love Roger Moore. I had the pleasure of seeing him a couple of weeks ago at a Q&A session with Roger Moore and at Malvern. And it was, he's a legend, isn't he? Let's face it, you're never going to get Connery doing that. And considering how miserable Daniel Craig is these days, probably will never get to see him do that. Timothy Dalton, I reckon he probably would. He's always seems to be a bit of a fair play guy, and considering he was in Flash Gordon as well, extra kudos to him. I think we have to bring up the fact that the cars are brilliant in Bond. My all-time favourite car is the DB5. If I had money, I would buy it straight away. There are some shit cars, and I don't mean the Citroen C5. Let's face it, the Invisible car was the biggest pile of pants in the world ever, and also ruined the franchise. But still, hey-ho. Anyway, really looking forward to the podcast, and looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks in the pub, talking crap. Take care.
Thank you very much for that, Simon. And don't worry, if you want to listen to us talking crap, just subscribe to this podcast. It'll save you buying a pint.
What a great plug. What I am liking about all this is that this increasing consensus for Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, and the new conspiracy theory that AIDS and Tom Hanks killed his tenure in Bond off.
Yeah, I was a bit sort of like quizzical about that. Sort of, what? HIV cinema? Yeah.
Well, why not? I mean, going back to Reverend Paul's point, it's a Bond of the times.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But no, Dalton is fantastic. We have great admiration for him.
So, thank you very much for that, Simon, and thank you for all the feedback, and thank you to everyone for the feedback. I think it's interesting how over the course of two podcasts, it's suddenly gone from the standard kind of Lazenby's underrated, Connery's the best, everyone else was just around, to suddenly Dalton's actually the one.
Dalton's getting an awful lot of love.
Yeah, Dalton,
definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. He bloody is, and he bloody should.
Yeah.
And
oh, bloody bastards!
Bloody bastards!
Bastards!
But actually, what you got to do with that Flash Gordon line is you've got to do the high pitched beginning. Freeze! You bloody bastards!
Max. Right, okay, so there you go. That's the end of our Bond special, for good or for ill.
Oh, sorry, but I've just got the terminal open. I've just typed in Freeze You Bloody Bastards into YouTube.
Yeah.
And I didn't even complete it, and it came up with Freeze You Bloody Bastards.
Hey, play it. Freeze, you bloody bastards.
Okay, let's turn this right up. There we go.
Go on. Do you know what? I'm actually going to put that on the end of our. I'm going to put that on the end of the outtrack.
Oh,
yes.
I just love the way he screams the word freeze. It's brilliant.
Freeze, you bloody bastards!
There you go. So Timothy Dalton. I think out of everything, I think he's the one person who's done well out of this cast, because I think we're all going to get fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you. Unless
I've made your job so much fucking harder.
Yeah, except for the fact you've suddenly increased my editing by 7,000%. But anyway, I guess before we go, we've got to do the next film. Darren, are we going to go for the film that we were talking about?
I think we should.
Okay.
The Blu-ray's been sitting there
Staring
glaring
at
at me from the shelf,
Okay.
so we should go for it.
This film, I wouldn't say it was a classic. I wouldn't say it was a bad film. This was just a film that it was in our schedules, and it was going to land on November the 5th.
Yeah.
Which gives you a clue where we were going. It's a film that was adapted from an Alan Moore comic, and starred Hugo Weaving, even though you really didn't get to see him. He behind an iconic mask that has now become synonymous with pretty much hacking bastards everywhere around the internet. We are, of course, talking about V for Vendetta.
Very divisive.
Yes. So next week we shall be reviewing V for Vendetta. If you want to send any feedback in on that, please send it into Blackdog at Geek Planet Online, or leave some feedback on the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups, the Blackdog Podcast, or just put it in the search and find us.
Do you know what I love about V for Vendetta is that they put the release date back. I think it came out in March or something.
Yeah.
So you had like Hugo Weaving's voiceover in it, and it just completely fucked up the whole nursery rhyme thing. You know, so it was like, remember, the 7th of March. It just sounded shit.
Oh God! Yeah. Oh dear. Right. Well, we're going to wrap this up, and so we will be covering remember the 7th of March, V for Vendetta, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you very much to Danny and to Jim for joining us on this epic length cast.
My very great Savile.
And thank you, Jim.
It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. Oh, gentlemen. Honest. Despite what I'm going to be saying at 11:30 tomorrow night as I start to edit this fucking thing. But anyway, and thank you, Darren.
No problem.
And we shall see you all next week for V for Vendetta. Okay, take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.